Good, very early morning, Australia, and good afternoon to those of you joining us from the US and Canada, and good evening to any of our attendees from across Europe. I'm David Phillips, Learning and Development Consultant and Sessional Lecturer at La Trobe University here in Melbourne, and former Tennis Australia National Coach Development Manager. Welcome to the 5th installment of our webinar series, Leadership in Uncertain Times. During these exceptional times, we want to add as much value to you and your business as possible so that you don't just suffer through this global event, but instead maximize your opportunities while providing inspired leadership to our organizations and our communities. Our intention is to connect, share, and support, and to manifest a strong sense of hopefulness, belonging, and community. And to do just that, we've gathered key industry leaders from around the world to share their insights and real-time advice on what organizations, business, and sport leaders like yourself can do right now. We appreciate you prioritizing the time to connect with us this morning. Today's topic, champion-minded, resilience, and maximizing your opportunities. And we're joined today by Allistair McCaw. Morning, Allistair.
Good morning and good afternoon from the other side of the world. Nice to be here, David. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. It's hard to imagine people might not be familiar with you, Allistair, but I'm going to just read a few things about you to give people a frame and a context. So Allistair is recognized as one of the world's leading figures in human performance, team culture, and leadership. For over 25 years, he's worked with numerous Fortune 500 companies, Olympians, and Grand Slam champions, NCAA colleges, and professional sports teams. He's an author of 3 selling books and a 4th one, which he's just recently released and which we will explore on today's chat. He's a much sought after keynote speaker. He consults and partners with sport teams and corporations around the globe, optimizing individual and group potential. But before we get to that's quite the bio. You're a very busy man. But before we get stuck into the heart of today's timely discussion, just a few details about our structure. If you happen to leave the webinar early, there will be a follow-up email. It'll contain a few useful links that Allistair might like to share with us, and a link to the cloud recording so that you can watch it at your home and your convenience over the next week. Of course, there's a chat feature down in the bottom menu of the webinar that you can use to ask questions. We'll probably spend about 45 minutes talking with Allistair, followed by 10 to 15 minutes of questions from you. You can ask questions as we go along. We'll try our best to manage them in real time, but if not, we'll make sure that we get to them at the end. I'm very excited to kick off today's webinar with my trusted friend and colleague who joins us this morning from Delray Beach in Florida. So how's this morning going so far, Allistair?
Well, the morning was about 4 or 5 hours ago, but yeah, no, it was actually, I mean, the weather's been incredible here. Obviously, we're limited to going outside. We're still allowed to go outside here. We're just not allowed in groups, but we can still go to, actually funny enough, from tonight, from 12 o'clock, there will be more of a lockdown here in Florida because there's been more cases here. And obviously, as you've probably heard over the news, New York is having a tough time at the moment as well. So, we're going to be taking a 21-day lockdown here in Florida. We don't know what that means yet because you're still allowed outside to do the basics, but you're still allowed outside to exercise, etc. But weather's been great, and I've had a productive morning so far. So thanks for asking.
You're very welcome. Well, it's certainly quite early here, and we're moving into fall, which is still a bit weird for me, having lived most of my life in North America, to have the seasons swapped at the time of the year. But I can feel the winter temperatures settling in Melbourne. We're in a bit of a similar situation. We're in stage 3, certainly here in Victoria. And people are behaving themselves for the most part. You know, streets are fairly empty.
That's very uncommon of Australians, David. They don't usually behave themselves, huh?
I think we're following rules. We're listening to the advice, and a little bit too early to say that it's flattening the curve. But in the last couple of days, we seem to have seen a few good statistics moving in the right direction. But I also think people are taking the time to settle back into family life and focus on other things that they may not have had time to do. So that's a good thing. Yeah. So I remember crossing paths with you probably about 4 or 5 years ago now at the Grand Slam Coaches Conference. It seems like just yesterday. What have you been up to since then?
Wow. Okay. Going back 6 years. Where do I start? Because I do have a very busy lifestyle, which I love. I love what I do. But yeah, a few years ago, I changed my path, so to say, in terms of going into more leadership, more into culture, or going to mindset. And that started with the books as well. My first book, 7 Keys to Being a Great Coach. But before that, you would have known me, David, in the performance side and the physical training side, where I worked with a lot of great players and had a great time of it. But probably about 6-7 years ago was when I thought I felt I needed a change. I needed to reignite the passion I had in what I did, because I was starting to wake up, I wouldn't say not enjoying what I was doing, but I no longer had that passion. I no longer had that desire. So, I discovered that the mindset, I discovered that working with teams, working with people, working with cultures was something I really, really enjoyed doing. So, like anything else, like a scholar, I went to work on it. I've read every possible book I could, watched every great person in those industries. And, as we go along, we just learn more. No matter what industry you're in, is great leaders and great people in their industry are continually learning. They're continually looking for ways to learn, be it in podcasts, webinars like we're doing right now, reading a lot of books. We know that Warren Buffett and Bill Gates read 2 hours a day. So leaders are readers. But what else have I been doing? Some crazy marathons. I'm still recovering, I think, from 2015, 2016, where I did 7 in 7 weeks and 12 in 12 months. But really just the last 2-3 years have been a lot of traveling, a lot of speaking on the book as well, but a lot of consulting to colleges here in the United States and some professional sports teams and now corporates as well. So absolutely loving what I'm doing. I'm in the same predicament as everybody else right now, where I'm at home and can't travel. So, that's hopefully what we're going to be getting into the webinar today is how to stay productive and make the best use of this time.
Yeah, no, I love that. Actually, thanks for that. I think I follow you religiously on most mediums, not an Instagram guy yet, but all my friends tell me I need to get across that. But the other day you put something out. I think when the dust settles after all this, we'll realize how little we need, how much we actually have, and the true value of human connection. Yeah. Can you just expand a little bit more on that for us?
Yeah, it's in times like these that we really realize what matters. This is the first time, probably since the Great Depression, where we're going to be in a recession around the world. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that. The world is going to change. The world has already changed. As we were just chatting the other day, David, about I've already heard of 2 business owners here in Florida that are going to start with a 3-day work week. Meaning that, they're going to have their people at work for 3 days and 2 days home, because they find that this time has been more productive. To answer your question about that quote I put out there, every day I've been out to go have a run or have a bike or go to the store if I really need to. I see so many families outside. I see dogs being walked. I can see some dogs who even think, oh no, not again. I'm going out for another walk. But there's families that are working out together in the park. There's families that are going for walks. David, I have never seen that unless you live in a metropolitan area where you go to the park, and there's going to be maybe a little bit more that, if you're in New York or in Melbourne. But, I live outside the city here, and just people are out and about, and it's so encouraging to see. So I think people are going to realize in this period really what does matter. Is it the rat race? Is it chasing the next big thing? Especially here in America, it's like the harder you work, the more you're respected. And we're letting go of all the things that are the most important. In my new book, I talk about the 5 regrets of the dying. And no one's going to regret not working more hours. They're going to regret not spending time more with family and friends. And right now, we're given, in our era, in X generation, Y generation, and forward, this is the first time that we've been forced to slow down. We've been forced to change our routines. We've been forced to relook at how we do things. Businesses will change. Like I just mentioned there, the 3-day work week will happen. It's still 5 days of work, but 3 or 2 days will be at home, for example. So the world is going to change. Communication is going to change. So much is going to come from this.
I know, fantastic. It's I know that one of the things that always impressed me, even all those years back then, and I don't know that I ever conquered it, but was how, I'll use the word disciplined, how disciplined you were when you weren't in your natural environment, when you were on the road traveling, to still maintain your routine. Now, this is a bit of a flip around for you because you're stuck at home. How are you coping with work from home, like setting up your day, your life for success? What's been the change? What are you doing?
Yeah, great question. So I'm all about routines, having what I call a game plan for the day. So this is, funny enough, this has actually been pretty easy for me to transition into. The only difficult thing is it's the longest I've never traveled. It's the longest I've never been on an airplane since I was maybe 25, 30. So that's very different. To be at home for so long. I mean, it's now 4 weeks, I think I've been at home. It's the longest. But David, what I have, because of my lifestyle, is either traveling or it's at home. I have two routines, two separate routines. So when I'm at home, I already have a routine that I've been doing for years. For example, what time I get up, I do my routines in the morning, my exercise, my thoughtfulness, and some reading. Then I start my work, for example, between 9 and 12. I have a break for some lunch. I'll return some emails if I have to. I have a nap in the afternoon. I do some more work, and then I have some more exercise in the afternoon. That's what a day looks like for me when I'm at home. So nothing's changed. So it's been pretty easy to I didn't even have to transition to it. And then when I'm on the road, it's different because most times you have to work around the schedule of your client, of what time the meetings are, what time you're speaking at, what time you're going to be, if I'm consulting at a college, it's going to be all day. You leave the hotel at 7 in the morning and get back at sometimes 9, 10 at night after dinners with the coaches or dinners with the deans, for example. So, it's been an easy transition, but it's definitely come down to the big word of having a game plan for your day and having routines. I can tell you, it's the first bit of advice. If someone asks me, what's your best bit of advice right now? I say, wake up and have a game plan, have a routine. Even if it's 1 hour in the morning or 2 hours in the afternoon, just have something at the end of the day that you feel you accomplished.
A while back, you and I were on a book club chat for my team here in Australia, and you talked about a daily reflection. I probably should have memorized this. Now I'm calling from memory. What I did well, what I could have done better, yes. Anyone I improved, or something. How did I affect someone along those lines? How'd I do?
Absolutely.
Close?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was very good, actually. That was good. So there's 3 things I make sure I live my day by, and I call it GAS, okay? And I talk about this in the book as well, is that the G is gratitude in the morning. So wake up and I feel grateful for 1 or 2 things. It's usually a lot more things. I try and live my day through appreciation. And appreciation is a kind of word for gratitude, but in appreciation, I'm talking about mindfulness, mindful about others, mindful about the people that are making your life easier. The cashier, the person at the post office, the guard at the gate, whatever it may be. So I'm mindful of that, thanking them and being appreciative of it. And then the last one is self-reflection that you're talking about right now. And there's 3 basic questions I ask myself at the end of each evening. It's, what did I do well today? What could I have done better today? And who did I make better today? So those are very, very much linked to my purpose of making others better. And it's self-reflection, because that middle question right there of what could I have done better today? It could be a few things. For example, it could have been the way I spoke to somebody, where I was maybe overwhelmed with work and I snapped at somebody. I reflect on that and go, okay, that wasn't called for. I need to apologize about that. At least I'm aware of it. I'm aware, or instead of just brushing it aside. For example, what didn't I do well today? It could be anything. I mean, it's, you know, what happens in life. So those are the three questions I ask myself. What did I do well today? Which helps me reflect and helps our confidence, is recognizing the good things we're doing, because perfectionists and people, most people beat themselves up about what they didn't do well today. And you know, this is something that definitely when I work with athletes, David, is they don't recognize enough of the positive. So what they're in effect doing is they're stealing their confidence. They're robbing their confidence. I like to compare confidence to a brick wall. Each little thing that you're pointing out, each little positive that you're pointing out in yourself, you're putting a brick on that wall. So you're building this wall of confidence. Every time you beat yourself up about something, you berate yourself, you take a brick off that wall. And we see that in sports as well. You know, you're just talking about tennis. Tennis players that beat themselves up on the court. You know, they don't even need an opponent to beat them. They'll do it themselves. They're taking bricks off their confidence wall. So that's a very important thing, is to recognize the good, recognize what could be better, and recognize who you made better today.
No, I love that. That sort of confidence wall probably goes a lot to, and I think I've read it in one of your blogs, a lot to surrounding yourself with the right people. Yep. I think probably a two-part question. You're a little disconnected at the moment, being at home. So how are you continuing to maintain those connections on a daily basis? And, you know, how do you choose who to surround yourself with?
Yeah. Well, obviously my daily routine of having thoughtfulness is thinking about others, sending a message. I'm pretty active on WhatsApp as well. So you know, for example, right now, I'm taking care of my clients that I'm not seeing. So I will have it written down in my diary, for example, to say hi to certain coaches from a college, or say hi to certain people from a company maybe that I've been a consultant to. So I'm keeping in touch with them. I encourage others out there is, I get it. You've got bills to pay. You're hustling for some work right now, like 80% of us are, but take care of your clients that you have right now, the people that have been there for you. But you know, David, to answer your question, we have so much technology. We have so many ways of linking with people: WhatsApp, text, email, FaceTime, Skype, Zoom, like we're on right now. There are so many platforms, you know, but I urge people out there to connect with at least 5 people a day. Even if it's just a text or it's a 5-minute FaceTime, for example. This is honestly, and I don't want to sound overbearing here, but listen, I'm in the same boat as most of us. I'm not earning a salary. I'm not able to travel, so I'm not making a salary right now. But I'm really seeing this as probably one of the most productive times in my life, because I've been able to slow down, you know, because I'm always packing a bag and heading off to the next trip. I'm preparing a lot of things for when this coronavirus is gone, that it's launching me. You know, I'm thinking about right now is 6 months from now, what actions will you be thankful for that you took today? I'll say it again. 6 months from now, what actions will you be thankful for that you took today? The habits that you're building at this moment right now.
It's interesting. Every time I'm in a conversation with you, and this is the irony, because I'm obviously interviewing you at the moment, but I have less time to reflect personally on the challenge. So I'll have to go back and look at it. No, I absolutely would agree with you. Just on the note of that connection, I mean, probably related more likely to when you were a strength and conditioner or a performance consultant for Zav or for Kevin. I'm sure you weren't on the road with them all the time. I'm sure a lot of what you had to do was over voice or Skype or WhatsApp. And now, of course, we're forced into that situation. But if you reflect back to when you were in those roles and you had those distance challenges, how do you connect meaningfully and well with someone by technology, and especially someone who is in the middle of a performance moment for themselves? Any secrets?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So first of all, you have to be cognizant of the time zone that person's in. So the timing of your message is very important as well. You know, I'm I'm going to send something to you. Maybe if I need an answer for you or whatever, I'm going to send it to you maybe in the middle of your day, for example, not at 7 o'clock in the morning, unless it was incredibly urgent. You know, one of the worst times to send an email or messages is on a Monday morning to somebody, because they've already got 35 emails in their box on a Monday morning. So they're not going to give it attention. But before I work with a player or before I work with a team, I always like to have clarity on our communication and how that's going to be done. So for example, with Kevin, there was 5 of us in the team, and we had a WhatsApp group where we could all communicate. And that was one of the keys of successes to that team, was there was open and honest communication. We all knew what was going on. And I encourage this, if you are in a team environment or you have a group of coaches or colleagues, is have a WhatsApp group, for example, where you communicate open and honestly, because where issues happen is a break in communication. But you know, WhatsApp, honestly, David, has been my big go-to, because it's a communication medium that's being used by all generations. And we've found that emails are not so popular with later millennial Z generation, and now alpha generation, 13 and under. Email is more business. I've found that WhatsApp has been the most effective with teams, with all, you know, my parents even have WhatsApp. That's how we communicate. It has been the best way. But, you know, today we just have so many things that we can communicate with. There's just no excuse.
Yeah, no, I alternate between WhatsApp and FaceTime. I have family in London, and we're usually on FaceTime, but the last couple of days it's been fairly unstable, and WhatsApp has just clicked in right away. So no, those are some great ideas. Surely I could have been a little more cognizant of the time zone when I said good morning. It's sort of this look at how you're reframing your work and rebuilding your brand and connecting with clients. One of the things I loved, and this came up in a conversation earlier in the week with a key business operator here in Melbourne, is this notion of connecting with your clients, not to sell them something, not to drive revenue, but to actually demonstrate your care, to demonstrate your leadership, to see how they're really doing. Can you talk us through a little bit more about client interactions?
Yeah, right now, you know, like I just said, we need to take care of our existing clients while we look for other opportunities as well, because your existing clients have been the ones that have been with you up until this point. So that's very important, especially if there's coaches out there that are listening to this. You know, be in daily contact with your coaches, add value with your clients, and with your customers, add value to them. How do you add value? Simple messages of encouragement, motivation, whatever it may be. Share something from Facebook, something from Instagram or Twitter, whatever. That's how you add value. And you also remind them that, hey, I'm thinking of you. I care about you. Is there anything you need? So that's very important. But here's the thing. We need to understand the climate and the situation that we're in, is that nobody has money to throw around right now. So, you know, I've never seen so many adverts on Facebook in my life. I mean, you see one story and then advert, and you see one story, and I get it. You know, everybody's like in a time of, we have to sell online. And that's fine. However, we need to understand that others don't have the money to throw out on certain, let's just call it things that aren't necessary, because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if this is for another month. We don't know if this is for another 6 months. We don't know how long this is going to go on. We saw that South Korea got it under control within, I think, 2.5 months. China just got it under control. So we're made to believe, which is now 4 months. They started in January, for example. So how long is it going to be for the rest of the world? I don't know. So, you know, we're trying to save every penny we have right now, but be smart and be cognitive of how other people are as well, because they're feeling the crunch as well. So pushing products and pushing your services down other people's throats is not going to be, in my opinion, a good strategy right now. This is a time that you're going to take a hit. Some of us are going to take a hit, and you're building for after coronavirus time. So a lot of us out there who are coaches or in the industry is that understand that your your reputation and your brand is going to be increased by the fact that you cared during this period. The fact that you cared, because when you come out of this, word of mouth is the most powerful medium within the coaching and leadership industry. So people will tell others that, you know, during this time that you cared and you were there for them. And if you need anything, or you need a program, or you need someone just to talk to, whatever it may be mindful of that, because this is a time of isolation. And one of the biggest killers in the world, which leads to suicide, is depression. And there's a lot of people right now that are alone. There's a lot of people that right now that can't handle this situation. And I get it, because I've had depression. I know what it's like, and it's a dark, dark place. You know, it's funny. I was listening to a podcast this morning, and the guy said, you know what the opposite of, I hope I remember this. The opposite of depression is purpose. And I thought about it. The opposite of depression is purpose. You know what? He's right. Because when you're in a depressed state, it's very much inward. It's very much about yourself. And we will all have some form of depression during this period. Now, I'm not putting that on anybody, but, you know, some it could be severe, and some it could be, you know, you're thinking, you're worried about things. You're worried about bills. You're worried about your kids. You're worried about your family. You're worried about your future, because we don't know how long this is going to be. But, you know, it's so important to be mindful, be around other people, you know, as we were just talking about now, make phone calls daily, and, you know, use this as productive time. Let me tell you, I'm seeing this, David, as an incredibly productive time, even though I've taken a hit financially. It's the first time I've had a chance to work on a new website that I've been putting off for 2 years. It needed changed. It's the first time I've been working on certain other projects that I didn't get a chance to. I'm not married, or I don't have a family here in the States, but it's the first time that I've been putting up some pictures around the house and fixing that cupboard over there that's been hanging off the hinges. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of happy wives because their husbands are now they're at home and they have to do the odd jobs. So there's so much productivity to happen in this time. You know, here's another thing, David. So many people have said to me they don't have time before this. Now they have time. Now what? Are you doing those things? Are you being productive to do things that you said you didn't have time for? Because here's the thing. Now is your opportunity to make the choices that lead to a desirable future. Now is the time. Now is the opportunity to make the choices and build the habits that leads to a more desirable future. It's a choice. It's a choice to how you see this time.
No, I love that reframing. Most recently, the PTR put out, I think, the first of a 3-part series from Dr. Jim Lur, and he spoke about the present situation that we're in. He spoke about stress being a normal part of life, and all the ways in which we actually invite stress to our body. You know, we train harder, we build our muscles through stress, we put ourselves in competition in order to understand how we match up against adversity. And it was a short 10-minute video, but it was an unbelievable reframing of the story. And I probably ask you, how have you done that reframing in your own mind about your current situation, or how have you helped others?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It's not like, you know, this situation came along and I was like, yay, this is a great opportunity. I like you or anybody else out there, I go through, there will be moments during the day where my mind will think about things and, you know, veer off into what if, which is okay. It's normal. It's normal to feel those emotions. This is also a very emotional time. This is also a time of, you know, challenging your resilience and challenging your grit, you know, which was what I felt was a great topic of discussion for this webinar today. You know, stress is also a choice. It's how we perceive something, and we need stress in life, but it's how we perceive it and how we are able to control that stress. That's very important. So I think you know, let's get back to when I suffered from depression. I'm not scared to talk about this or afraid to talk about this, is that I didn't really have a routine. I didn't have a schedule to my day. I would just get up and, you know, I wasn't working much either. I couldn't get the jobs I wanted. This was a few years back. I had $22 in the bank. It's not an ideal situation. Couldn't pay the next rent. So I have been in this situation. I know what it feels like. It's horrible. However, if I'd had a routine, if I'd had maybe more support, more people around me, I probably would have got out of it earlier. And this is my advice to others as there is: surround yourself with good people, have a routine to your day, have structure to your day, read, exercise, nurture relationships. And I think that's what's keeping me sane at the moment, David, is I have these things going on because I feel the same emotions that everybody does right now. My bank account is going down. Okay. So like everybody else's, because my mortgage is coming off. My car payments are coming off. My phone is coming off. Those aren't changing. My HOA is coming off. But I'm not letting it affect me. I'm not letting it affect me. I can let it affect me. I have a choice to let those things bother me, but I'm more in the mind frame of what can I do now? What can I do now? Because the situation is what it is. I cannot control the coronavirus. I can contribute to the control of it in terms of social distancing, staying inside, washing my hands, all these things that we've been advised to do, but I can't control how long that's going to be. I can control, however, what I'm going to do on a daily basis and how I'm going to keep myself in the right mindset. Now, I know might touch on the book a little bit later, and I don't want to by any means push people on this, but I was supposed to bring this book out in November, and I was furious and I was disappointed that editing was late and publishing was late and this and that and this and that. And, then, one of my editors was ill, and I have compassion for that. Okay, that happens. That was another month. And I was so upset that it didn't come out. However, it only came out yesterday. And it's probably the best thing, because this timing, I try and put things to a positive. Like, it came out now, best timing. Because the messages in that book right now are all about what we're dealing with. Adversity, keeping yourself in a good mental state, having others around you, empathy, mindfulness, that you're not the only one that's going through this right now. We are all going through this together, and we can help each other with this. So change your negatives and those things that you're seeing. It's hard right now. There's no light in the tunnel. It's dark, but you can change your perception of how you see things moving forwards.
I used to have a supervisor when I was doing grad studies, and she had a picture above her wall. It was a cartoon. I think it was Far Side or something. And it said, the light at the end of the tunnel has been temporarily disconnected. And then right down below in the fine print, it said, sorry for the inconvenience. And she would look up at you and
that's pretty much how it is now. That's pretty much how it is now. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What's so important is, and some people don't take this too well. I put one or two funny things on my Facebook page, and 80% will have a laugh at it, and then you'll get people that'll be like, how can you say that at this time, and so on. And listen, I'm very tasteful, I'm very cognizant of the situation, but you've got to laugh through adversity sometimes. As difficult it is. Now, I get it. If you've lost somebody in your family to this or whatever, I get it. I mean, that's just the worst possible scenario that could happen. But I believe in humor. I believe in humor during difficult times, even though it's tough. Because, like my mother always says, laughter is the best medicine. I know it's a phrase, but she always just tells me laughter is the best medicine. So go watch a comedy. Go look at something funny on Facebook, for example. You know what I'm really enjoying at the moment, and it's completely distracting me off all my work, is all these memes that are going around about the coronavirus. I mean, there are some brilliant ones. I honestly probably get about 50 a day on my WhatsApp, and it distracts me, but I love it.
Well, it's funny because so many of the messages that you've said, including the one from your mom, I mean, I think we all had moms that gave us those things, you are the company you keep, all of that sort of stuff. These things are, control what you can control, my mother used to say to me all the time, which is around those comments on Facebook. She used to say, it's none of your business what other people think of you.
Yeah.
It's none of your business. You know, you go about doing what you do and being the man you want to be, and let the rest of it take care of itself. Probably going back to the company thing, how do you surround yourself with the right people? And then if you find someone who isn't positively contributing to your life, how do you adjust that relationship or distance yourself? What have you done about that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I have a very small circle. I have a lot of friends, but I have a very small circle who I'd call great friends. Somebody I could, call in the middle of the night if I was in trouble, for example. I always remember something my mother said, David. She said, in life, you will have no more than a handful of close people that will help you in any situation. And I must have been 14 at the time, and I thought, I'm sure I'll have a lot more than that. And you know what? To this day, David, she's 100% right. I don't have more than that, of those people that you can really call on where you're like just in such a bad place. I've been in some bad places as well, where you know who your friends are and you know who are not your friends. Now, it's like anything else. It's like getting into a relationship. It takes time to know that person, to build up trust. Maybe after 3 months, when the honeymoon period is over, you start to discover the real person that comes through. So it takes time to know who your real friends are. A real friend is someone that you haven't spoken to for 4 or 5 years, and you pick up the phone and it's like you were speaking yesterday, or they're not angry with you because you haven't returned their call for 2 weeks or whatever it may be. You're just like, hey, what's up? Are you okay? Those type of friends are so important. But great friends are people who align with your values. And they might not have the same sense of humor as you. They might be dry. They might be whatever it may be. But their values align with yours. And they might be completely opposite people in terms of their activities they enjoy, their hobbies they enjoy, the line of work they're in, for example. But you just connect. Because you connect with their values, you connect with their energy. For me, it's all about energy. It's all about energy. And you can feel that. You can feel when you walk into a room, or should I say, you can feel when somebody walks into a room and either that energy increases, the light shines brighter, or that energy just sucks you in. Like, I call them energy vampires. They just come into a room and they just suck the energy out of that whole room. So I think the older I get, and I'm getting very old now because there's a bit of gray coming through here. That's all the stress.
It's the good lighting.
Yeah, it's the good lighting. Exactly. Yeah. I think the older I get, the more let's call it gut feel. My energy tells me this is not a good energy or this is a good energy.
Wow. Fantastic. There was, I don't know if you remember the movie Coach Carter, one of my all-time faves around athletes, but there's a quote in there, what is your deepest fear? And he keeps asking the athletes that, and finally one of his athletes, stands up in the middle of an exam or study hall or something to do the quote, and it's from a book, Marianne Williamson, Return to Love, but it's this whole notion around your deepest fear is not that you're good or competent, but it's that it's that you're incapable or unaware or reticent to shine and to give others the opportunity to shine. It's that you're shrinking because you're worried about others around you. It's that you lower your standards because you're worried about others around you. And I certainly think this, what I've seen with you on social, what I know from you dealing with you is you shine brightly and you do give others permission to do the same thing. So, from my perspective, thank you very much, because it's very inspiring. If I want a dose of daily inspiration, I just go and see what you posted lately or who you've spoken to.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm going to be very honest. You called me last week in the evening, and I was pretty abrupt with you, and I self-reflected on that, and I hopefully got the message that I apologize for it. But it's hard to be positive all the time. You're putting on this front. I'm going to be honest with you, but And this is what I love about this book, my new book. Of course, I'm going to love my new book, but I'm more vulnerable in this book. I'm more vulnerable about these things, you know, that it's difficult to get out of bed every morning and go, woo, okay, what an awesome day, you know, because you've got things on your mind and there's certain stresses and certain pressures. But here's the thing, here's the difference between positive and negative people. Positive people still get negative, but they're able to snap out of it quicker, or they're able to catch themselves and go, you know what, that wasn't a good thing. And, you know, that's what, you know, we were talking about self-reflection, of self-reflecting on those things that I didn't speak to him properly or her properly, for example. But there's this illusion that positive people are just positive all the time. And that's not true. You know, we have our moments, we have our time as well, but it's a choice. Again, it's a choice.
I'm probably thinking I was either listening to a podcast or reading an article. And it was a reflection from someone who had survived probably almost a decade in a prison of war camp. And, you know, the question was, who survived? And he actually said all the optimists didn't survive. But he reflected on this. He said, you know, people who thought, oh, we'll be out by Easter, but we weren't. We'll be out by Christmas, and we weren't. And the years passed by. He said those people didn't survive because they died of a broken heart. People who survived were people who woke up every day with great hope, but lived in the circumstance of the day. They lived in the reality of what was around them every day, but they continued to hope for a different outcome, as opposed to the rose-colored glasses of, you know, wishing for it all to go away. And you've reflected on it a few times in different things you've said, but how do you manage uncertainty? I mean, we're all dealing with uncertainty, but what are you doing specifically to manage that kind of uncertainty?
Yeah, good question, because yesterday I did a Facebook Live, and one of the questions was, how do you stay motivated? How do you keep yourself on track in a time of uncertainty? You know, there's no timeline. It's not like we're all saying, okay, on the 1st of May, we're all back to work. We don't know yet. That, you know, here in the United States, the goalposts have shifted a few times now. You know, it was going to be April. Oh, now it's going to be May. I don't even think it's all going to be happening until, honestly, June at least, where it's kind of back to normal, if we all do our part, and if this thing clears up, for example. Again, it's again asking yourself that question of what's controllable, what's not controllable. And right now, the uncertain timeline of when we're going to get back is uncertain. So I love that analogy or that story you just told about the prisoners in the war camp is win the day, as in today. Take care of today. Today is all we have. You know what? We're worrying about months and years ahead. We don't even know if we're going to be alive tomorrow. I mean, you know, take care of today. Do the best you can today to set you up for a better tomorrow, if I can put it that simple.
No, I love that. I love the clarity of that. You've talked about setting goals, redefining yourself, rebuilding your brand, reimagining how work looks for you, how your personal life looks for you. One of the things you've been doing for the last probably over a year is working with different sorts of teams and organizations on their culture, on their leadership. And this is a moment when tools are down for the most part in a lot of businesses, and certainly with coaches, no coaching. Is there something that, you know, coaches, head operators, head coaches can do to continue to strengthen their team culture, strengthen the skill, the offering? What could we be doing in these times?
Well, here's the thing about leaders is great leaders are revealed through times of adversity. And right now we're going through adversity. We're going through a crisis. We're going through a pandemic. So the real leaders, we're able to see who the real leaders are right now, for example, around the world. The role of a leader right now is to calm the storm, okay? Because there's a lot of panic, especially with the pandemic, there's going to be a lot of panic. So the role of a leader right now is to calm the storm. The role of a leader is also to stay vulnerable as well, in terms of that maybe they don't have all the answers, and that's okay. You know, instead of promising things that are not going to happen because they don't know either. But the key thing is consistent communication with your team members. They want to hear from you. Panic happens from lack of communication. You know, I always say to coaches, one of the worst things you can do is break off communication with the parents of the kids that you work with, because that's one of the most important channels to that whole relationship working. You're not just working with the kid, you're working with the parents. So during this time, have you set up maybe a weekly or a daily, for example, meeting on a platform like Zoom, for example, or whatever it may be, with your team, giving them updates, encouraging them. That is what a leader does, is provides consistent communication. You know, right now it's a very challenging time, because it's you know, we're using things now that we've never used before. We're experiencing things we've never experienced before. So as a leader, it's okay not to know all the answers, but it is the job of a leader is to calm the storm, to communicate consistently and encourage others. For me, I think those are the 3 key points of a leader right now.
No, thank you for that. On the topic of vulnerability, it's probably a good moment to introduce the new book, Developing a Winning Attitude and Mindset, 50 Ways to Positively Transform Your Career, Your Relationships, and Your Life. I think just from having a little bit of a review of some of the pages of the book that this is going to kick the other ones to the side. We won't even remember that you wrote those. This one's,
don't say that.
This one's pretty incredible. This one's pretty incredible. But it's got you all over it. I mean, vulnerability to the core. Was that a challenge? I mean, what inspired you to do that?
I just thought I still have so much, you know, I write books to inspire others, but also to inspire myself. And a lot of my other books are, you know, they're about excellence and so on and so forth, but there's not enough vulnerability in that in terms of sharing my own story. And I wanted my next book to be a book that I would actually be nervous to put out. I would be a little bit scared to put it out, because it was, you know, telling a little bit more. So, you know, the more I've become more mindful and the more I've connected with people, the more people are encouraged and inspired by your imperfections, not your perfections. You know, people aren't inspired by someone that stands up there and says, look at me, my life is perfect, I have everything right, look what I've achieved, everything's great, this is how you do it. They don't really connect with that. You know, it's like, no, that's nice, you know, but that's not for me, or that's not the situation I'm in, for example. So all of us out there, believe it or not, struggle from the same challenges or struggle from similar things in life. Self-image, confidence, all these things that relationships that we struggle with. And the key thing in this book was, how do we develop a positive attitude and mindset around our relationships, around our careers, interacting with others, and obviously around ourselves as well, because the most important relationship you can have is with yourself. You can't have healthy relationships with others if you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself. And I like to maybe steer away from the word self-development or whatever, but it's about getting inside a little bit more and, you know, embracing those or facing those dark areas where they need to be confronted. Because you cannot become your best self. You cannot become your beautiful best self, your uniqueness, without addressing those things. And it can be painful. It was painful for me as well. And I thought, I need to write about this, you know? So I know that sounds maybe a little bit depressing, but it is the journey to developing a positive attitude and mindset. Because if things aren't right with you, you cannot have a real positive attitude and mindset. It's going to be false. It's going to be on the outside. People will see through you.
It's one of the things I love about your previous books, but also just about the short bit of reading that I've done in this one, is that you have a very skillful way of moving from jargon or catchphrases that we all use to some sort of concrete, meaningful action that we can take in order to affect change. I really appreciate that aspect of it. Aristotle was all about, you know, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence is a habit. It's an act.
Yeah.
And for you in your work, excellence is an attitude. Is there a difference there? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Good question. It's actually on my shirt as well, but you know,
can't see that far, even with my glasses.
You know, excellence can be in many things. Excellence is maybe another word for success. You know, you could put success there or winning there or whatever it may be, but excellence can be in your life. Excellence can be in your relationship. Excellence can be in your career, whatever it may be. Sorry. We still there? Yeah. Sorry about that.
We're still here.
Excellence can be in so many things, and it comes down to your attitude, the attitude of how you face these things, how you embrace these things. It's the key thing. So, in fact, the quote was going to be, or the phrase was going to be at first, excellence isn't a skill, it's an attitude. It was going to be that one. And I had it on the book until about a month before going to publishing. And I thought about it because I had a lot of time. I was at home. And I thought, you know what? Excellence is a skill. Excellence is a skill. It said, the first quote was, excellence isn't a skill, it's an attitude. And I thought, excellence is a skill. It's something that has to be learned. You're not born with excellence. So it got me thinking is that excellence is something that you have to go to work on every day. Excellence in yourself, excellence in your career, excellence in whatever it may be. It is a skill. So that's why I cut it down to excellence as an attitude, because I thought it just covered the whole spectrum.
I used to, oh God, this is now 2 decades ago. I had a very profound professor who used to say to me around excellence all the time. And I know you can't imagine me to have been a perfectionist, but she used to say the opposite of excellence is perfectionism. And it is that notion of, in order to be excellent, you have to have a million cracks at it. And you have to continue to learn from your failures. You have to continue to reflect. And a perfectionist never gets that first draft in. And probably reflecting back to the last couple of months of pain, she also used to say to me at that point in time, the last 2% takes 90% of the time. So hurry up and get the first 10% done and get me that first draft.
Yeah.
Because, it'll take a lot longer.
It's like, people say, how do you write books? I said, I start with 1 page and I get started, these 3 weeks, again, what have I been doing? I've been writing another book. It might only be a page a day, but I'm 30 pages in that I wouldn't have been 30 pages in if we were back to normal, for example. So again, productivity. But that was a good one because in the book, I also talk about Thomas Edison. He didn't fail 10,000 times, but he found one way that worked. Sorry, I'm mushing that up a little bit, but I'm sure a lot of you have heard that quote before, that he failed 10,000 times. He didn't see it as failure. He just found 10,000 ways not to do it.
Well, I think it's Einstein who also said it's, it's not smart. It might have been him. It's not smarter than anyone else, just stuck with the problem longer. And I think that writing certainly is that, just exactly that. And these are the moments with a little bit of downtime and more time to reflect, where writing can flow if you're disciplined. How do you, this is probably more a specific one to your routine than necessarily the book, but how do you find the right moments of flow or the right times when you're productive to do certain things?
You know what? You said the key word there, David. You said discipline. And I've had a pretty busy day. I've been productive. It's now almost 5:30, 6 p.m. here in the evening. I haven't written my page yet. And like anybody else, I'd love to go watch Netflix or do something else, but I'm going to get that page written. It doesn't matter if it's at 11:59 tonight, but each day my goal is to write a page. That's all. That's doable. It's almost like me saying, hey, 20 minutes exercise a day. That's all. Everybody has 20 minutes. Even if you go walk, it doesn't matter. Just do something. And it's the same for me as well with writing a book, David. It's discipline of 1 page a day. people fail in discipline because they make that their goals are too big, or they're not starting gradually, or they're not just doing, you know what, you hate exercise, and then, you know, you go to the gym and, okay, this is not for me. Hey, 10 minutes a day. See where that goes. And you're like, okay, that felt pretty good. Maybe I'll do 15 minutes tomorrow. And I've got a good friend of mine as well who didn't exercise for a long time. And he called me and he said, what should I do? How do I start an exercise program? I said, you know what, Brett, just start with 20 minutes a day. Oh, that's doable. I said, okay, get back to me in a week's time and tell me you did 20 minutes every day. Deal. Checked in every day, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. And then without me saying anything, it started to increase to 30 minutes. Then he would send a message saying, you know what, I did an hour today after a month or whatever it may be. He went on to do a half Ironman 6 months later. This is a guy that's done nothing for 5 years. Went on to run half marathons, half Ironmans, all these things. And it started with just getting his foot out the door and achieving 20 minutes a day. He had no inclination to do half Ironmans or whatever when he started with 20 minutes. So these things can lead to each other. Just start, just get started. That's all.
No, I absolutely love that. You are probably one of the most disciplined people I know, and consistently disciplined. Interesting there, because you're sort of referring to having an accountability buddy. Do you have accountability buddies?
I do.
That keep you on track?
I do. I have two. So I have one with regards the book, and I have one with regards to exercise as well. So we have to post our workouts on WhatsApp or whatever. So I have to post that page tonight, and I can't get around it. You know what I mean? It's being checked.
Being checked all the time.
Yep.
And are you an accountability buddy for other people other than the fitness person?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I am. I am for those two as well. So the goals that they have. So yeah. There were a couple questions from the audience here, but probably just one of the ones that it sort of emanated from so many of the stories in the book, but it's also just all over media, this whole notion of EQ, emotional intelligence. And of course, in a lot of your writing, that's about, you know, the inner emotional intelligence, but also as well that within your relationships with others. But can you just maybe reflect a little bit more? Is this an overused term? Is there anything to it? Is there anything to that? Yeah, sorry, I just had to get out of the earphones here. Can you hear me?
I can still hear you. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Just had to put my battery in. I think a lot of people don't understand really what EQ is. I mean, let me explain it very simply. EQ is your ability to handle your emotions, to understand yourself. So there's two parts of EQ. The first one is personal competence, the ability to understand your feelings, your emotions. And the other one is social competence, of how you deal with others, how you collaborate with others, the relationships that you have. So again, important to learn about yourself, which happens through self-reflection and working on being a better you. And the other one is social competence, learning how to work with others. IQ is something you're born with, your intellect. You can't change that. You can, there's a number attached there, but EQ is something you can change. And today in the market, in the workplace, people are being hired on their EQ level more than their IQ level. Their ability to work with others, their ability to handle stress, their ability to collaborate. So EQ has become, a massive thing these days. Two things I'm investing in are emotional intelligence and learning the generations that are coming through. Those are the two big things for me at the moment.
Any books or podcasts or particular people you've read on the topic that you can share with us?
Sorry. Are you there, David?
Yep, still here. Still can see your picture.
Sorry
still
about
can
this.
hear you.
If I cut out people, I apologize. I'm just having a bit of a battle here with my battery right now. So, yes, Emotional Intelligence 2.0 is a good book from Travis Bradbury. Daniel Goleman also has a good book out. I think it's called Emotional Intelligence. I think it just is called Emotional Intelligence. But if you go onto Amazon or Google and you put in Emotional Intelligence books, there'll be a few good ones that'll come up, but those are two really good ones. So the first one is by Travis Bradbury, and the second one is from Daniel Coleman, who is actually the father of EQ. I think he wrote his first book on this subject in 1994. So it's been around for a long time. And you know, David, it's common sense, isn't it? The ability to know yourself and control your emotions and control yourself, and the ability to relate with others. It's common sense, isn't it? But common sense isn't so common for most of us.
That also used to be something my mom would say. I just probably transitioning a bit to answering a few of the questions that have been posed. There are a few in the chat, but some people had sent in a few ahead of time. So there's one here from Maria, who's just wanting to know how you lead and maintain high performance remotely.
Sorry, just say that last part again.
How do you lead and maintain high performance remotely?
How do you lead high performance remotely?
Lead and maintain high performance remotely.
Well, I think that comes down to the standards that you've set. First of all, as a leader, the standards you have set for yourself, which is the most important thing, and the standards you have set for your people as well. So that is how you set high performance, is through the standards that have been set. And more importantly, how the standards have been kept and adhered to. So in leadership, that is part of your job as well, is to set those standards and make sure that those standards are adhered to. One of the biggest things in leadership is courage. So if those standards are being violated, you are able as a leader to change those behaviors, or be on top of those behaviors, for example. So that is one of I mean, there's a few factors, but that's the biggest one, are the standards that are set and the standards that are maintained by the group. And that is how you maintain high performance. There's a lot of things that could go to that. For example, there's high performance in meetings, there's high performance in effort levels, and so on and so forth, but definitely standards. In my first book, 7 Keys to Being a Great Coach, it's the first chapter, the very first one. It all starts with your standards, and it finishes with your standards too.
Absolutely, thank you for that. Another one from another Maria. The expression, I'm just going to frame it a bit. The expression is misery loves company. And certainly when we're connecting with people, there's a lot of, there's a lot of complaining and or negative talk, because we're bombarded by so much negative news, et cetera, et cetera. But how do you put a boundary around that so that, people can share what they're going through, but you can move beyond it?
I'm sorry, David. I can't hear anything at the moment. So 1 second.
No worries.
Can you just shorten that question, please, and just.
When you're connecting with people, there's obviously a lot of negativity going on in the world and in people's lives. How do you put a cap around it so that you can move on to the positivity but still support people? Yeah.
Here's the thing, is that you can't change people. You can't change somebody's attitude. That has to come from that person. So, obviously it's very important with regards to the people that you're working with or you're in a team environment with. So you can only be the example. You can only be the example of being the best version of yourself, because your team are going to be looking at you, of how your attitude and your behavior. So again, it comes down to courage, and leadership is not accepting certain behaviors. And some people, maybe it's not going to be a match for them to be in that team or to be in that culture, for example, and they need to move on or need to be moved on, for example. So you can't change people. Change has to come from that particular person. We know out there there's incredibly negative and pessimistic people. They have as much access to you and I of positivity, of positive books, positive podcasts, changing your attitude. But some people just don't actually want to be positive, which is a funny thing. Some people don't actually want to be, they actually enjoy their misery there, and they love spreading that misery around others as well, just like a virus. So again, you can't change people. You can only be the example of the change you want to see first, because your example will always be the most powerful thing of trying to change others.
It sounded so Gandhi there. Be the change you want to see in the world. Things are not the way they are. Things are the way we are. A question from Justin around how you capture in the dark times. How did you capture the gold and in order to move forward? Those key learning moments in the dark times.
Embracing them. And understanding that I did this better later on, is that I learned to feel pain, as where you can mask pain, you can push it to the side. And sometimes those things can be destructive. They can be gambling, they can be drinking, they can be these other things that you're not really embracing the pain that you actually have. And you have to move forward in life. And to develop, like we talk about the right attitude and mindset, you have to embrace pain. You have to embrace vulnerability. And it's a very, very tough thing to do. But you will only be able to break through once you've been able to embrace those things. So I didn't do it that well in the beginning, to be honest. But I've learned in life that you have to feel pain. You have to go through it. And those have been the points in my life where I've made progress. It's been messy. It's been difficult. It's been painful. But when you break through that and you embrace it, that is where you grow stronger, you grow more grit, you grow more resilience. So my advice there can be embrace it and feel it, and have good people around you to help you as well. Don't isolate yourself. Have a strong network around you, or there's one or two people that you can go to that can help you.
Do you yourself have a coach, whether that's a wellness coach, a strength and conditioning coach, a life coach? Do you access professionals where you're the client and it's completely focused on your outcomes, your barriers, et cetera, et cetera?
Not necessarily one person. I don't have a mentor. I have many mentors that I have online that I listen to, and so on and so forth. So we have so much access to mentors and people. I have a very good network that I've built up over the years of people that I can go to with questions, be it about my personality, or be it about, I have accountability people. I have, friends that say, you know what, that wasn't a good thing that you did there. And they're honest with me. And it's tough, but those are the most important people in my life, are the ones that are able to say the truth. Because we can surround ourselves with yes people and the people that are just saying the right things to us, but that doesn't help us. That doesn't grow us. That doesn't get us anywhere. So especially in professional sports, I've witnessed it working with a lot of athletes. They just surround themselves with yes people. And the minute someone comes along and says, you know what, that's not a good idea, they get rid of them in most cases, because they don't want to hear that. They want to have yes people around them. So I have a few people that I am able to go to or call and ask for advice. And I think the only barrier between not wanting to ask advice and ask advice is ego. Our ego can take over of not wanting help or not wanting to ask advice. So, once you get over those barriers as well of ego, then it opens up a new life, so to say.
Fantastic. It looks like I'm not seeing any more questions there, but maybe give everyone another minute or two. Maybe just some closing thoughts, some reflections on maybe what the next few weeks look like for you. What are you looking forward to? What are you focused on?
I've got a lot of stuff to keep myself busy because I'm going to be stuck at home with everybody else. So I'm enjoying my routine. I've got my exercise each day. I've got writing. I've got working on other projects. So I'm keeping myself busy. I'm also enjoying some free time as well. Yes, I am watching some YouTube or Netflix during the day as well. So, but obviously socializing is very difficult at the moment, what we can't do. So we're having to FaceTime and we're having to do all that stuff. But, and just encourage everybody out there to stay productive, to have goals for each day, tick them off at the end of the day, self-reflect. This is a great time to work on yourself, to work on the relationship with yourself, to work on the relationship with others, to step back and have a look at your life and see what needs to change, what needs to grow and what needs to go, for example. I've actually done that before, where I've written down on the page, must grow, must go. And the things that are going are bad habits or people that are toxic maybe in my life. And the growing is obviously investing in myself more, investing in relationships more, and becoming a better version of myself.
Thank you. I appreciate that. One final question here that's just come through.
Sure.
Reflecting to a previous book, probably, and as well as current work, you've observed some great coaches and leaders. What are the key characteristics you see, and what do you believe are the key skills future coaches or leaders must have? Good
question. Very good question. Great leaders have a vision, first of all. They're very clear on that vision. Their people, their team members are also very clear on that vision. So there's clarity there, first of all. Second of all, a great leader has empathy, has great emotional intelligence. A great leader demonstrates the standards and the qualities that he or she desires to see in others. So they are an example. So, I could give a massive list there of what qualities there are, but that would be the important ones. They have a vision. There's clarity on the vision. They have empathy and good emotional intelligence. They're able to connect with their people well. So those would be some of them. Moving forward, I think I said a little bit earlier, is understanding people, understanding the generations you're working with, and working on your own emotional intelligence. Those are the two key factors I believe in today's leader and moving forwards. A massive one is emotional intelligence. And also we have to learn the generations that are coming through as well. Do we understand them? Do we understand how they communicate, how they collaborate, how they receive information? Those are key factors.
A mentor of mine, some 100 years ago, during probably a high performance camp or something, said, in a very trite way, I don't think he was meaning to be profound, but everybody sort of stopped in their tracks and there was just a dead silence as everybody was reflecting. And he said, here's the thing, people, like, we're not teaching tennis, we're teaching people. We're teaching people how to play tennis. It's your job to create skillful performers. It's your job to deal with the performer and the human being. And, that was some 25 years ago. It affected me right from the very beginning. And it was that same emotional intelligence conversation happening in a different time. And it's never been so true today. Never been so true today.
Exactly.
Any final thoughts, Allistair? Any final messages for us before we sign off today?
Yeah, look, I think I've given a few final thoughts there already, but this too shall pass. This too shall pass. This time will pass. And who knows if this ever happens again? We hope not, but just embrace this time. Make the changes you need to in your life. It's almost like Earth has slowed down on purpose to give Mother Nature a chance to breathe, for us to reflect on certain things. And I just want to say to the people out there, this too shall pass. We're going to get through this. Everything will be okay. Maybe it doesn't look like that right now, but we'll come out of this better. I really believe that, even though it's hard to see right now. So stay safe, stay positive.
Yeah, I appreciate those words. Thank you for joining us. Definitely looking forward to taking a deeper dive into your book. It's available now on Amazon?
It's available on Amazon worldwide. Yep. There's a little bit of a issue with the paperback, but it is available on all those mediums. You have to go look for it. So if you put in Developing a Winning Attitude and Mindset and scroll down the page, I've had a lot of time to look at this, you'll find the paperback. It's in Kindle. It's in Kindle and paperback. Here's another thing. I don't even have the book yet. I've had to order my book from Amazon as well. So I'm waiting for it because obviously there's been a problem with the publishers and the printing with the coronavirus, and they're working with less people, so on and so forth. So it's been an incredibly interesting time. So I'm getting my book in the mail hopefully Saturday.
That's always a treat when you actually get it in your hands.
Some of you guys will have it before me, so let me know.
I'll take a picture and post it on your page.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, this is the moment timestamped when I got the book. If people want to reach out to you to engage with you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. I'm on Twitter at Allistair McCaw. I'm on Facebook, Allistair McCaw page, and on Instagram, Be Champion Minded. Those are the best 3 areas.
Perfect. Well, really appreciate your time with us this week. It kind of wraps up our leadership series this week. Next week, we're looking forward to having a conversation with Bill Riddle from the US. He's going to talk about his personal journey as well as
Awesome.
what he's
Great
doing
guy.
in the online space. Yeah, great guy. Mr. Energy. And Andy Sutton, who is one of my good colleagues from Toronto, and he's a longtime tennis coach, tennis director, leads a lot of commercial and private facilities, and he's going to have a conversation with us around membership, keeping that sense of community, belonging, what's important in these times, and how the clubs and the entities he's working at actually go about putting people first in these moments, and what are the practical ways we do that. So that's looking forward next week. But again, thank you, Allistair, for joining us. Have a great day to everyone in Australia. Good evening to everyone in the US and in Europe, and take care.
Thanks again, David. It's been a pleasure. Bye, everyone.
Absolute pleasure. Cheers, mate.